Disclaimer: everything that we are discussing in this video is purely meant for educational purpose. Investment in securities market are subject to market risks.
हाय फोक्स, वेलकम बैक। आज हम पावर सेक्टर का एनालिसिस करेंगे। एक सीरीज स्टार्ट करी है मैंने, एंड एज यू ऑल नो कि मैं पावर सेक्टर को इतना ट्रैक नहीं करता, हार्डली कुछ कंपनीज ट्रैक करी हैं, एंड माय नीश इज इनटू B2C कंपनीज। सो आई थॉट कि हु इज द बेटर पर्सन फॉर एक्सप्लेनिंग द पावर सेक्टर टू ऑल ऑफ अस। सो सेल्वा इज विद अस। अ लॉट ऑफ यू माइट नॉट नो हिम थ्रू हिज नेम, बट उनका एक्स हैंडल आप सबने फॉलो कर रखा होगा, इन्वेस्टर कंपस। So first time he is revealing his face to us, and he has a 10 plus years experience in the power sector, and के tweets भी देखोगे, so power sector में in depth he is covering. So Selva, brief about you to the audience.
So hi everyone, I'm Selva, and as Abhishek said, I run a page in X called Investor Compass, and I have spent around 12 years working in power sector. While I'll also be an active participant in past decade in market. My goal is simple, actually, to bridge the ground industry knowledge with practical investing framework, so that our investors can see both big picture as well as the hidden opportunities.
Yes, and इस series को will be like a conversation between me and Selva, so that and very layman terms में I will be asking couple of questions, so that जो कोई track नहीं करता उसको भी idea मिल जाए। एंड इसको इंग्लिश में रखेंगे बिकॉज माई ऑडियंस लाइक हिंदी में आई विल स्पीकिंग, बट सेल्वा इज फ्रॉम साउथ इंडिया, सो इंग्लिश करेंगे, इट विल लॉट इंटरेस्टिंग। एंड लेट मी शेयर माई स्क्रीन एंड लेट्स स्टार्ट एंड क्विकली जंप अपॉन द थिंग्स. Yes, so this is my Twitter handle. If you haven't followed, you can check it out. And this is Selva's Twitter handle. So a lot of you already might be following him. So Selva, a very basic question, like why this sector is important to study and what has changed? Like, is it a sustainable demand या कुछ time की growth लग रही है? Because अभी तो काफी buzz है sector का.
The sector is very hot, as you say. There are quite a few reasons. First reason is that massive government CapEx visibility, that is as per NEP, that we say as National Electricity Plan, they have nearly 9.15 lakh crore transmission CapEx they have planned between 2022 and 2032. Like it is a multi-year pipeline backed growth. The second reason is the structural demand growth. Power demand is rising around 6 to 7% annually, in line with our GDP, because of the new demand layers which are adding up, like data centers, EV, AI, and railways. So it is not a cyclical story. It is the demand is reoccurring and it is consumption driven.
Selva, we have understood that the demand है, मतलब ये ऐसा नहीं है कि short term demand है, it's a sustainable demand, government का push है. So अभी कहाँ से power generate हो रहा है mostly, and क्या future outlook है government का?
So if you see the Indian power sector today, it is largely anchored over by thermal power energy, that is mainly from coal and oil. So nearly 70% of power coming from that. There are some big names here like NTPC, some state gencos like Maharashtra, Gujarat, and many private players are there like Adani, Tata Power, then JSW. On the renewable part, we are getting around 30% of the power generation. Solar and wind are leading it. Solar players like Adani Green, Renew Power, Tata Power, they are doing it. And for the wind, Suslan and Inox Wind are the key players. In hydro part, there are very few companies like NSPC and SVJN. And we are getting about 3%, I think so, from nuclear power.
Okay, and future outlook, like if you see the government का जो एक target आया था, by 2030 government is planning कि 50% renewable से produce करना है. So the outlook, I think so, majorly government का push is renewable only.
Yes, absolutely. Because the solar and wind, they are the major renewables, and they are the real growth engines for the future. Solar capacity is likely to be over 200 gigawatt by FY27, if I'm not wrong, and wind capacity also will be doubled. I think so. It will be around 92 gigawatt by around FY27.
Okay.
And we are also into this battery energy storage thing, BESS. So that will also scale up. Right now it is around 1 to 2 gigawatt, and it will be like 8 to 10 gigawatt by FY27.
ओके एंड फ्रॉम एन लेमन पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू जो इस सेक्टर को पहली बार पढ़ रहा है, सो उसको लाइक रिन्यूएबल वर्सेस नॉन रिन्यूएबल में से कौन सा सेक्टर लाइक शैल ही और शी फोकस ऑन?
Okay. When we look at the power sector today, this is a major question that will come to everyone's mind, like where to focus, our traditional things or our fast growing renewables. So what I would say is let's start with the renewables. Let's start with non-renewables. Coal still provides 70% of India's electricity, but it is the backbone, it is the base load. There are many policy pressures like ESG concern, and it has very re-rating limit. It has a limited scope left. It has limited potential left, where I would say. Whereas if you consider renewable part is the future growth engine. Okay, India has around 500 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel power, as you say, in by 2030. So definitely they should focus on non-renewables as of now.
यस यस, गवर्नमेंट का पुश उस साइड लग रहा है ज्यादा. एंड इसमें एक बहुत कॉमन क्वेश्चन है लाइक इन टर्म्स ऑफ कि पावर मेरे घर पे एज अ कंज्यूमर अदानी पावर से आ रहा है, टाटा पावर से आ रहा है, कोई भी पावर कंपनी से आ रहा है, आई डोंट केयर, मेरे को लाइक कंसिस्टेंट पावर सप्लाई चाहिए एंड एट अ चीपर रेट. सो ऑल दीज कंपनीज जो प्रोड्यूस कर रही हैं पावर, सो लाइक इसमें प्राइसिंग पावर नहीं है, लाइक सस्ता प्रोड्यूस करना है. सो डू यू थिंक इट्स अ बिगेस्ट रिस्क इन दिस सेक्टर?
So when we talk about the pricing power in power sector, it is it actually differs across the value chain totally. Like firstly, we have to take up with generation. In generation, most of the electricity here are sold under long-term PPAs. So prices are cost plus bid based. So there is very little pricing power here for gencos, for generation companies. So only when demand is spiking out, they will have the pricing power. Like when demand is high, they can supply at a high price. Second, transmission side. Transmissions are highways of electricity, I would say. Like here, the pricing power even not at all coming to play, because companies here are regulated way, like fixed returns, like 15 to 16%. It is all over controlled by a body called a CERC. Regulator is there as CERC. They are controlling the overall thing. So here there is no pricing power. It is certainty of income, and it depends on only the cash flow that will be varied. So
Okay.
third, when we consider distribution, it is the last mile delivery. Here, tariffs are the major things. Tariffs are decided by state regulators, and margins will be depend upon your discoms wherever they are supplying. They can reduce losses, or they can reduce the theft, which is theft from irregular power theft is happening now, that one. And this here also very limited pricing power.
Okay, so what I've understood is for the summarization and audio point of view, audience point of view, like power के 3 points हैं, generation, then transmission and distribution. Generation में produce कहाँ से होती है, transmission में उसको पूरा carry करते हैं from one place to another, then distribution जो आपके घर तक पहुंचाते हैं. So generation में भी इतना कोई pricing power नहीं है, because competition है, but demand के साथ जितना ज्यादा demand होगा उतना ज्यादा they can charge. एंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन में भी लॉसेस होते हैं, थोड़ा सा चोरी भी होता है पावर का. सो ट्रांसमिशन इज समथिंग जहां पे थोड़ा सा प्राइसिंग पावर भी है, एंड वहां पे गवर्नमेंट का पुश भी है, इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग. एंड आई वांट टू हाईलाइट कि हम invid.in की पीपीटी यूज कर रहे हैं, बिकॉज दे हैव लाइक हाईलाइटेड दिस एंटायर थिंग इन अ वेरी ब्यूटीफुल वे. So we have to give credit to them as well. So Selva, as per my understanding, whatever things you have highlighted, so transmission sector ko shall we focus more on basis the discussion?
Transmission is the sector where we need to focus more, bro, because that is the real pricing power, where the equipment makers are there now, like cables, transformers, conductors, and HVDC makers. The demand is far high than supply. So cables are expected to grow at a rate of 4 to 5x, and transformer order books, as you can see, it is lined up like 2 to 3x compared to earlier. So that's why transmission side is having a huge scope.
Understood. So इसमें एक let's break it down. So transmission from a layman point of view, जो ये स्क्रीन पे दिख रहे हैं आपको like a structure, जैसे रावण type of structure, I would say effigy of रावण for the non-English speaking audience. So इसको बोलते हैं transmission या wires को बोलते हैं, जो बड़ी बड़ी wires लगी होती हैं, किसको बोलते हैं exactly? What is transmission?
So I would start from generation so that people
yes.
Understand more. Like generation is where the power is getting produced. So electricity, which is produced in power plants like coal, gas, hydro, solar, wherever it is produced, there the voltage range will be there. So it will be some kVs, and it will not be suitable for long distance. So what we will do is like we will step up to reduce the losses, and we will transmit to the wherever the receiving company is there, like that, through the power grid lines. So this is where the transmission part comes in. So once the power is produced, it has to travel long distance. So that voltage has to be stepped up from a lower voltage to higher voltage to reduce the losses. So here towers, high voltage lines like on HVDC links and substations in between to transfer the power.
You use the word HVEC. So
HVDC.
So what is it? Layman को नहीं समझ आएगा. Simple.
Okay, HVDC means high voltage DC transmission. So we'll be converting the AC into DC. Like we will always generate AC power, and we'll be converting that into DC power, and we'll be transmitting it. And the DC power also will be at higher kV range. So we are naming it as HVDC.
Okay, got it. Continue, please.
So in transmission side, if you see that the leading players are Power Grid and Adani Energy Solutions, and a few utilities like and EPC companies like KEC, Kalpataru, Transrail. Whereas Power Grid is a main anchor. Power Grid is totally controlling India's grid. So they are having the major thing in transmission, but it is a regulated body. They will give subcontracts. Oh, I'm going fast.
Okay. Got it. So like you are saying that the entire this thing, the cables and entire supply chain from generation, once the power is generated हो गई एक बार, तो उसको पूरे point तक पहुंचाने के लिए the entire chain is called transmission. वो power grid own करता है, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
In India, mostly only in except a few places, mostly Power Grid is directly transmitting. In distribution part also, actually we missed the third part, which is distribution. Distribution is like last mile delivery, where the high voltage, it is stepped down to lower voltage for industrial consumers or our domestic things like shops, offices, other things and all. So in few places, Tata Power, Torrent Power are being the distributors. Mostly it is done by either government or other things.
So one question कि कोई कंपनी ऐसी भी है like दो जो पूरा end to end कर रही है, पावर जनरेट भी करती है, ट्रांसमिट भी करती है, डिस्ट्रीब्यूट भी करती है?
Tata Power.
Okay, Tata Power. Okay.
Tata Power, yes, but it has limited, in a limited place only is doing. It is not doing all over the India. In some parts of India they are doing.
Okay. And जितना अभी तक समझाओ conclusion से, tell me if I'm like right कि ट्रांसमिशन में ज्यादा फोकस कर सकते हैं, because एक तो मार्जिन्स भी हाई मिलते हैं, and like it's not something जहाँ पे pricing power पे like जो कर रहा है इसको ट्रांसमिट उसका कंट्रोल है, rather than कि just on the demand and supply, right?
Exactly. Generation, as you say, it is cyclical. Coal is stable, whereas renewable is now only growing. I will say transmission is the safest best because regulated returns and the visible order books are there. Whereas distribution is concerned, it is reform driven because of state payment delays and other things are happening. So we can focus on transmission and mainly the instrument makers like equipment suppliers like cable, transformers, HVDC thing. That is safest bet, as well as it has high re-rating potential, I would say.
Okay. So for this series पहले हम ट्रांसमिशन स्टार्ट करते हैं, then eventually generation and distribution भी कवर करेंगे, but as per our discussion अभी ट्रांसमिशन ज्यादा important है. So Selva, समझ आ गया end to end like the generation, transmission and distribution. Now as you're also highlighting कि ज्यादातर पावर ग्रिड से आता है, so वो डेटा की 50% पावर ग्रिड जनरेट करता है, पावर ग्रिड ट्रांसमिशन को ओन करता है, and remaining other players हैं. So question is कि मैं पावर ग्रिड पे क्यों ना फोकस करूं जब यही एंड टू एंड ओन कर रहा है सब कुछ?
Actually, this question will come to many persons' mind. Like when they think about investing in power sector, the first name obviously that flash in mind is power grid. But the reality is different. Okay, power grid is very stable, but growth is very limited here, I would say. It earns from fixed regulated returns about 15 to 16%, which is very safe, almost like utility like. But here, growth depend on the new projects given by the government. Once the project builds, the cash flows are steady. The stock's upside is limited. It is capped. That's why power grid mostly behaves like a bond proxy, I would say.
Okay.
The
And
dividends are good, but capital appreciation is moderate. In bull markets, it usually underperforms.
okay, okay, got it. And as per my understanding, also like whatever I understood, ki power grid like owning the end-to-end transmission thing. However, वो आगे projects देते हैं to company like Skipper, Transrail, right?
Correct. We would say them as EPC players, and they will supply, and they are the equipment makers also. It is more exciting because we are in the middle of the explosive demand cycle. The government has the government is targeting nearly 2 to 3 times growth in substations, transmission lines by future. So the demand here is huge for towers, cables, transformers, and HVDC systems. As
So,
you
Selva, sorry to pause. Like a lot of terms we have used. So let's go step by step. Like
okay.
substations, EPC. So काफी jargons हो गए. Step by step चलते हैं. So if you can see, सबसे पहले you have used the term EPC. इसका full form तो सबको ही पता होगा. Engineering, Procurement, and Construction. ये बहुत ज़्यादा commonly used term है. But होता क्या है ये?
So, as you said, EPC means engineering, procurement, and construction. That means designing a project, so sourcing the material, and building it end to end. In a power sector, like EPC covers transmission lines, towers, substations, sometimes even smart meters to even renewable parks. In short, EPC companies will deliver the entire project. It is like a turnkey thing.
Like everything we are EPC companies are like from starting of the projects to completing the projects, they are owning everything. In that it comes transmission lines, substations, transformers, switch gears, everything is covered in the EPC chain, right?
Yeah, EPC companies will be obviously getting some orders from the owners, and they will be supplying it for them. Like they will be erecting and making it work, and they will give to them.
Okay, got it. And इसमें भी बहुत सारे terms use हुए हैं like जो EPC companies कर रही हैं. So हमारी जो slide है, if you can see the transmission line, substations, transformer, switch gear. So could you just explain ये सब है क्या, मतलब a bit in a shorter way to the audience?
Like it is like the parts of the transmission system. So I would say first we will start with this towers. Okay, these towers are like poles and structures which used to hold up the power lines in the top.
Okay.
That can be lattice towers or tubular towers. That can be monopoles. Depend on the voltage and geography, it will vary.
These kind of towers, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
These kind of towers, and it will vary depend on the voltage and geography. Which types of the voltage and geography it will vary. I would say secondly we'll go for the conductors. The conductors will be it will be hanged to the poles. Those are the wires which we carry electricity through them. Electricity will be carried.
Okay.
So this will be coming across the towers, and this will be made up of aluminum or copper or some mixed alloy thing, and they are the arteries of the transmission system. Like human body, they are the arteries of the transmission system. Thirdly, the substations. Oh, okay. Like these substations are like hubs on the highway, I would say. They are used to step up the voltage when the power leaves the plants, and they will be stepping down before distribution. Inside substation, you will see the equipments like transformers, switch gears, insulators, capacitors. These things are used to make the power flow stable and safe.
Silver, we understood कि जो चार कंपोनेंट्स होते हैं ट्रांसमिशन में, बट एक बेसिक क्वेश्चन, ट्रांसफार्मर अगर आप देखोगे सो मेरे घर के पास भी एक ट्रांसफार्मर होता है, व्हेनेवर कोई लाइट का इशू आता है तो हम बोलते हैं ट्रांसफार्मर में इशू आ गया। एंड एक होता है हाईवेज पे देयर इज अ ट्रांसफार्मर, बिग टावर्स। सो दोनों ट्रांसफार्मर है और लाइक क्या है डिफरेंस क्या दोनों में?
I'll start explaining from what is a transformer. Like it is like a gearbox of electricity. It doesn't create power. It simply changes the voltage level. Whichever electricity is supplied, and it will simply change the voltage level, and it will transfer it safely and efficiently. See, when you see in a power plant, the voltage generated will be around, the voltage generator levels will be around from 11 kV to 25 kV. That is not good for long distance. As we earlier said, when it comes to long distance, it has to be stepped up to a higher voltage to avoid losses. So whatever the power plant generated voltage, now 11 to 25 kV, it will be stepped up to 220 or 400 kV. Or now, right now we are going for 765 kV also in HVDC side, and we are transferring it to avoid current loss, heat loss, as well as the long distance losses.
Okay, got it.
So now, once electricity reaches your city or nearby town, that has to be stepped down, and it has to be supplies for homes and other shops. That is where you see the small roadside transformer coming in. That will be stepping down that higher voltages to 11 kV side, 11 kV or 415 volt to supply the home needs or industries. That is where that small transformers coming into play. In simple words, I can say like transmission transformers are bigger ones near power plants, near substations, which you see on highway, and distribution transformers, I would say that you see on the home side or smaller ones in your street or colony.
Okay, got it. So what I understood is दोनों ही transformers हैं, it's something role different है, and दोनों comes under the power transmission chain, right?
No, actually, bigger transformers will be coming under power transmission chain, and this distribution transformers, now that will be coming under distribution side.
Okay.
That is different.
Got it. Simply put up. Okay, ठीक है. Now एक और क्वेश्चन आता है कि ये चारों पावर ट्रांसमिशन में, एंड अभी हम ट्रांसमिशन साइड फोकस कर रहे हैं. अभी जस्ट वी अंडरस्टूड दैट EPC is end-to-end owning of everything. So the context is, let's say Power Grid gave a contract to a company. Example के लिए, let's say Transrail. Transrail will either make by themselves or get it done. Like it's their ownership, right? Now the question is, as an investor, we shall focus on EPC companies because they're doing it from end to end, or the companies that are manufacturing these parts, let's say transformer, cables individually. Which one is more important?
So I would say, as a investor, we should focus where the demand is more. Where the demand is exploding, I'd say, and where the pricing power exists. That part we want to concentrate. Like EPC companies, like KEC, Kalpaturu, Skipper, Transrail, they win contracts. They win contracts to design and build this transmission line substations. So their order book is growing more. They are the bigger part of this growth engines in this cycle. And secondly, I would focus on this towers and conductors also. Companies making towers, they are also towers and conductors. They are also seeing their order books 2 to 3x. So their also order books are growing. Third part, I would like to concentrate on transformers and substations. They are the critical part because now renewables also coming up. So grid need to balance between the renewable and non-renewable thing. So companies like Tarrell, Siemens Energy, Hitachi, CG Power, they are into this substations and transformer thing. So we could focus on those things also. Mainly players who are shifting from low voltage to high voltage, they are also need to be focused. I would say EPC companies and this transformer and substation companies, we need to focus more. Their only demand is growing like anything, and pricing power is there.
So Selva, very common question, और I would say किसी के माइंड में भी आ सकता है कि EPC कंपनी सारा काम कर रही है, right? Like पूरा प्रोजेक्ट ओन कर रही है. It could be some work they are being able to manufacture from their end, or they are getting it outsourced, right? And the other one is the companies that are purely into manufacturing. Let's say company is manufacturing transformer only. So considering both of them, margin, is there any common pattern ki margins iske zyada honge ya like, or like EPC companies ke margins zyada hote hain? Is there any correlation kuch aisa hai common?
When you consider EPC companies, their core EPC projects would be transmission lines and substations. This is where their bulk part of revenue will come, like say we can say 80 to 90%. So margins typically in this one will be around 10 to 12% range, but it is not steady, not very high also, because competition is intense here and bids are disciplined. So here the margin trigger will be the backward integration of towers and conductors, I would say. Like this is where the company get the edge. So if they are backward integrating, they are having their own plans and they are manufacturing it and they are erecting it, means it will be better for them to get more margins. If they are outsourcing from somewhere else, their margins will be lesser. And another key trigger for margin will be like export orders. In export, we'll get better pricing, obviously, and we'll have a 1 to 2% higher margins when compared to domestic projects.
So Selva, we have understood जो transition में क्या-क्या parts होते हैं, किस पे focus करना है. Now एक बहुत common term है T&D losses. So as we were discussing today about the transmission losses, transmission theme. So what is transmission loss होता क्या and why is it important? Because ये term बहुत बार आता है.
So I would explain what is transmission loss. When electricity transferred over long distance, even at high voltage, a small part of it, a small portion of it will be lost. This is called transmission loss. Some power is lost as a heat of wires, and there will be some energy leakages in transformers and substations. Whereas in high voltage, like 765 kV, it will be somewhat lesser, around 2 to 3%. In lower voltages, it will be little bit more. Now, as you ask, who bears the losses?
Yeah, so इसमें like one question I would say is very important question is कि जो EPC कंपनी है, ठीक है, जिसने प्रोजेक्ट लिया पावर ग्रिड से, उसने पूरा काम करा एंड सबमिट कर दिया, मतलब प्रोजेक्ट एंड पैसे मिल गया. सो जो ट्रांसमिशन का लॉस हुआ, एज यू आर सेइंग कि पावर एक जगह से दूसरी जगह जाती है तो लॉस होता है. सो बेयर कौन कर रहा है लॉसेस एंड इज देयर रिस्क इन द EPC कंपनीज की वो बेयर करेंगे लॉसेस?
See, it is important to understand that transmission companies like Power Grid or Adani Energy Solutions, they are not penalized for their losses. The income is based on regulated fixed return, about 15 to 18%, as their lines are available for running. So whether they transmit lesser power or more power, the revenue won't be changed.
Okay.
This as EPC companies, they will just erect the line and they will give to the Power Grid or Adani Energy, whoever managing it. So simply, it won't be burden for transmission companies like them also, as well as it won't be burden for EPC companies. So there is a system, regulated system for it, and it will bear the losses.
लाइक स्टिल थोड़ा सा और डेप्थ में चलता है. मतलब अभी लॉस हुआ किसका? बिकॉज इलेक्ट्रिसिटी अगर 100 प्रोड्यूस हुई, 100 यूनिट, एंड लाइक वो पहुंची टू द डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेंटर 95, एग्जांपल के लिए, जो 5% का लॉस है वो एज अ कंज्यूमर की पॉकेट में जाता है या फिर कोई EPC कंपनी?
So the cost of the losses is essentially it is pooled into overall system. As you see, it is pooled into overall system, and it will be finally passed on to the distribution companies. We'll say it as discom distribution companies who are doing the distribution. We'll say it as discoms, and they will be ultimately passing it on the end consumers through tariffs. Okay. In simple words, it will be passed on to the consumers only.
Okay, अंडरस्टूड. नो गॉट पॉइंट कि जो लॉस होगा वो कैलकुलेट हो जाएगा, मतलब पावर की कॉस्ट में, जो कि 1 रुपए यूनिट का. तो सेल्वा, वी अंडरस्टूड एवरीथिंग अबाउट दिस ट्रांसमिशन एंड लॉसेस, बट वन क्वेश्चन दैट इज कमिंग टू माय माइंड, अगर आप स्क्रीन पे देखोगे कि T&D लॉसेस कम हो रहे हैं विद टाइम, व्हाई इज इट हैपनिंग? व्हाट्स द की चेंजेस दैट आर बीइंग डन? And ये developed countries में भी same percentage है, or do they have a lesser losses?
Obviously, in developed countries, loss is less than India. Why? I'll say why. Because they are having better infrastructure. In developed nations, they have modern cables, underground cable, more smarter substations, and stronger equipment. That means less technical losses will be there. And in many developed countries, power plants are located closer to cities and industries. Electricity doesn't need to travel that much far. That line, so that line losses will be lesser. And they are using like advanced technology, smarter grids, digital monitoring, and many automation things are coming. So this will detect overloads, leakages, and as we already discussed, thefts also instantly it will detect, and it will reduce the wastage.
We have understood क्या क्या होता है transition में and क्या important है EPC and all. So next very important question is need for capex in transmission. जो 9 लाख करोड़, a very big number जो government spend कर रही है, but there's a need for this.
There are some few reasons which I can line up. Government is spending around 9.25 lakh crore as per NEP up to 2032. The first reason I would say is the rising demand. India's power demand, as I already said, it is growing at 6 to 7% per year, in line with the GDP, because more factories, more homes with ACs, EV charging, and data centers all need reliable electricity. Without new capacity, grid will be congested. The second reason is we need renewable integration. Most of our new power is coming from wind and solar, and we are growing on that part. So, which often located far from the people's place, like out of the cities, it will be there. So, we need this new green corridors like HVDC lines, substations to carry this green power and supply to industries. And third reason I would say is reliability. We need to strengthen our reliability because India still faces some blackouts, some outages in many regions. Even recently would have come up in news also. So the fresh capex in modern substation, underground cabling, smart meters will improve the reliability of the system, and it will reduce the losses so that we'll get the 24/7 power.
Yeah.
Also, last reason I would say is efficiency and loss reduction. Right now, we are having some losses and we need to reduce it. This capex in new line, smart meters, feeders, this will bring down substantially the losses. I would say roughly around 50% of the losses will be reduced in next few years. So our capex is mainly required because our demand is rising, and we need to integrate the renewables into the grid and grid modernization. Without this, we can't go to the next level.
Got it. So end to cater to the rising demand, we have to invest इस sector में करना पड़ेगा, and transmission is something a very important part in the value chain, right?
Correct.
So now we have discussed about the background, about the sector, the theme which we want to study. So now let's dive into the 3 companies that are into the EPC projects. So before starting this project, or I would say discussion, I want to highlight the things that we're discussing or the names that we're taking are purely meant for educational purpose. It's not a buy or sell recommendation at all. You have to do your own due diligence. Okay. So 3 companies are Transrail Lighting, Skipper, and KEC International.
KEC.
So these are the key players in the EPC. You have understood EPC क्या होता है, project own करना. So Selva, please take it forward and explain कि क्या differences हैं about the basic about all these companies.
So first we'll take on Transrail part. Transrail is one of the fastest growing EPC players in India. So what does Transrail primarily do? Primarily, they are doing transmission and distribution EPC. Okay, they build, they design, and they execute high voltage power transmission lines, towers, and substations. That is their core business part. They are getting around 90% of their revenue from T&D projects. They also do civil work, railway electrification, and lighting poles. And they have recently entered the solar EPC thing for overseas projects. So, how does they work? I will say about their business model. Their main business model, like they will win the EPC contracts for building power infrastructure. They are also importantly they are backward integrated. They manufacture their own towers, own conductors. This reduces their dependence on suppliers, cut cost, and it will boost their margins. That is why their EBITDA margin is around 11.5 to 12%. It is the best among the industry.
Okay.
Next,
Okay.
I'll come to their revenue segment. As I said earlier, their major revenue is from T&D EPC. It is around 90 to 92%. And uh, their towers and conductors, they are doing as a part of their EPC. Next bifurcation will be civils, railways, and poles lighting. That then they will getting around 7 to 10% of their revenue.
Okay. And if you look at the growth in terms of the sales, so last 3 years, they are growing at a CAGR of 32%. And during this time, we have to note कि slowdown चल रहा है economy में. Last 1.5 साल से if you've seen major consumer companies में कोई growth नहीं आ रहा. This company is growing at a 32% CAGR and profit growth 72% CAGR. That means last 3 साल में margin expansion हुआ है. If you'll see like इनका margin जो है like 12% था, then अभी 13% है. So this company has improved their margins. So that's why इनका sales growth से ज़्यादा profit growth है. Coming to their shareholding pattern अगर आप देखोगे, so DIs are holding a good stake, 12%, थोड़ा सा कम हुआ है, and FIs are something 1% and then promoters. So overall shareholding pattern is good. Shall we take about the future outlook, or shall we discuss into the peer-to-peer जब हम discuss करेंगे तब
that will take up in the all three companies when we compare. Now I would like to add one more point. Why their margins are high, because their domestic versus international mix. They have around 60% of their order book from domestic and 40% of the order book from international. This is one of the major reason they are having their margin at high level. And this company management sees their demand is increasing, so they are increasing their in-house capacity also. They have laid out the clear roadmap, they are expanding their tower manufacturing from 84,000 to 1,96,000 by March 2026, and they are expanding their conductor manufacturing, like we'll say in kilometer terms, like 24,000 kilometers to 49,500 kilometers by June. This ensure they are meeting their demand.
Okay.
And
now,
there are obviously risk involved here. When I say about the company, we have to discuss about the risks also, no? So execution risks are there, since the 40% is from overseas. Some delays might be there, like Bangladesh. They have faced some delay in payment and something, and so a company is obviously reducing Bangladesh part now. And receivable risks also there, and geopolitical risk. They are working in Africa. That thing, it is through a mitigated multilateral agency, like that thing. Also, EPC company, when you see working capital intense, most of the EPC companies, so naturally ties up with lots of cash. So that parts also need to be taken care of.
Yes, because it's a heavy capex investment sector, right? So like huge investments, and the cash flow they have to manage properly. So if you'll see the cash flow from operating activities, they're able to generate, but they have to reinvest into their capex. So that's why you can see the negative figure in terms of CFI. So that's also thing you have to consider. Got it. Just one question in terms of the more demand is in the domestic or international side, the demand is more.
As you see, the capex we have announced 9.15 lakh crore. So demand is there in domestic level very high, but international level also availability is there. It will depend upon their capability, company's capability, how they established internationally. Depend on that, they will get the demand. They will get the orders.
Okay, so both sides you are saying that domestic we have
demand is there. Demand is universal.
Demand is universal. Okay.
Yeah.
And the demand is coming, like these companies are working in the developing countries or developed countries as well. They are getting the orders.
Mostly they are working in developed countries, developing countries like Africa, as I say, Bangladesh, and few other things only.
Okay.
Mostly from developing countries, they are getting more.
Because in these countries the infrastructure is yet to be developed. In the developed countries sab ho chuka, right? Yahi hai.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Coming to the skipper, Selva, could you explain about the skipper? Ki kya karta hai and all?
Okay. Now, so what does Skipper do? Skipper builds transmission towers, lines. They are also into this core EPC transmission business, but they are also into polymer products like pipes, plumbing, and smaller infrastructure segments. It is a mix of EPC plus diversified business. This is their business model. And also, they are also backward integrated. 90% of their raw materials like towers, fasteners, and other things, they are in-house made. So they keep their raw material cost low and their margin steady. And they are doing exports also. They are expanding it aggressively. Right now, it is at lower scale. They are even competing with Chinese players also.
Okay.
When come to the revenue segments, 80% of their revenue is coming from T&D EPC only, and 10% of them coming from polymer, and another 10% is coming from civil and railways infra. In Q1, EPC saw 24% growth. Polymer segment seen around 34 to 35% growth, and infra side we see a dip around 40% because of this cyclical thing. Whereas their domestic versus international mix, if you see, they are mostly domestic dependent, and their international business is growing fastly. But when you compare to Transrail, it is somewhat lesser. It is far lesser only.
Understood. And margin wise, which one is more better in terms of the margins?
So I would say whichever company is doing more international orders will have more margins. Here, Transrail is doing more international business. So Transrail is having more margin when compared to Skipper.
Yes, if you will see, the skipper is having 10% and somewhat 12 to 14% margin is having Transrail in terms of the
Transrail margins are industry best.
Yes, and if you look at the growth of skipper is also in terms of in line with, I would say, Transrail. Last 3 years sales growth is 39% and profit growth is 72%. So similar trend you can observe दोनों companies में margin expansion दोनों में हुआ है, and both the companies last 3 साल 5 साल से like demand is growing, and similarly stock maybe performance reflect to it. And so that's the thing about the skipper. It's more into the domestic side, and Transrail is in more into the it's mix of both. Coming to the FISDS holding, so one key observation in skipper I would say is कि इनका domestic mutual fund कोई invest नहीं करता. So that's a bit of a red flag I would say. And FIs own करते हैं, and other than public and promoter. So that's about the brief about the skipper. We'll discuss about the management outlook in the peer-to-peer analysis. So we have discussed about the two companies, Skipper and Transrail. Now let's discuss about the third company, KEC International. Selva, please explain us the KEC.
So KEC is a global EPC leader. KEC is a diversified EPC player, I would say. Their core segment will be D&D, but they are also into many other segments like civil construction, railways, cables, and oil and gas pipelines also. So KEC's business model would be like they will win large EPC contracts in India as well as in a global way. So unlike small EPC players, KEC spreads risk across the geography, I'll say. So it is more stable and balanced business. When you come to the revenue segment wise, T&D is a major backbone. T&D EPC, I would say around 60% of their revenue is coming from T&D. 20% will be coming from the civil infra, and another 10% will be coming from railways, and remaining cables and renewable part will be the remaining. They are also backwardly integrated. They are having multiple tower manufacturing units in India, Dubai, Brazil, And they are expanding their cable plant in Vadodara. They are doubling their cable conductor capacity.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So got the understanding that they are much more diversified in terms of the revenue mix, geographical as well as TNDB. मतलब TND का इनका सबसे कम, I would say बाकी companies का TND से ज़्यादा आता है. This company is more into other domain as well, and geographical wise this is much more expanded. And coming to अगर आप इनका sales growth देखोगे, so इस company का sales growth is a bit कम. बाकी companies 30-40% से grow कर रही थी. So last 3 years, the KEC is growing at 17% and profit is also growing at 17%. So हमने Transrail में देखा, Skipper में देखा, दोनों में 30+% से तो sales का grow हुआ था, plus margin expansion भी हुआ था. However, if you look at in-game margins, so least margins among all the players. So any particular reason, Silva, like they are having the least margins compared to Skipper and Transrail?
So we'll compare all three so that we'll get a better idea why like this, why the parameter is.
Yeah, that would be better. So let's like once we will finish, then we'll discuss peer to peer. So if you'll see domestic DIs holding is around 22%. So DIs are holding good chunk, although they are decreasing their stake. And public is being 11%. So public is सबसे कम है compared to other companies, because it's a big company, it's a large cap company, and overall the shareholding seems fine. So, Selva, now let's do a peer-to-peer analysis of all the three companies. What's their pros, cons, and कौन सी company किस जगह अच्छी है?
So okay, first we'll take on the backward integration. All three companies are backward integrated. Like Skipper alone, 90% of their raw material and thing alone they are getting. Remaining companies mostly they are getting in-house manufactured. When you consider KEC, backward integration exists, but it is spread across multiple verticals. So I would see here less margin punch. Okay. Whereas when you consider Skipper, it is one of the strongest backward integrated models, I would say. That explains their margins around 10%. Among the three, Transrail, I would say integration is their key margin lever. They are delivering already more than 20%, more than 12% of 12%, which is industry best.
We have understood about the basics of the companies, and Transrail के ज़्यादा margins हैं compared to all of them, and execution wise backward integration Transrail थोड़ा better integrated and Skipper भी. So now let's discuss about the Q1 के numbers and also the future outlook of the management of all the companies.
Okay. Transrail lighting first, if you see, and their guidance, they have guided a revenue growth of 22 to 25% in FY26, and they also said they will maintain the margin 11.5 to 12%. And in order book wise, they are aiming to match their last year order book around 9,500 crore, and they have 1 lakh crore bid in pipeline. And they are planning to bid another 25,000 crore for next 2 to 3 months also. In bid, their success ratio, strike rate is around 8 to 10%. So in revenue mix wise, they are going to maintain like 50-50 India and overseas.
Okay.
And execution wise, 30% of the order book will be executed in FY26. That is normal execution time. Theirs will be 18 to 24 months in India, and it will take somewhat longer, like 24 to 30 months in international.
Okay.
And on capex part, they have announced tower and conductor capex, which we have already discussed. They are going to increase their towers and conductors capacity because huge demand is there.
So we've discussed about the Transrail, and now let's discuss about the future outlook about the Skipper. So Skipper management has guided 25% plus growth for FY26, and they're expecting कि next 2-3 years तक ये guidance intact रहेगा. Along with that margin expansion, they are also guiding somewhat 50 basis point improvement in the margin, and huge inflow of order they are targeting. So overall, if you'll see both the companies, Transrail is guiding 22 to 25%, Skipper is guiding 25+%. So similar guidance along with margin expansion, दोनों companies का outlook seems good as per the management. And coming to the KEC International, ये among the three having the least margin and slow grow कर रहा है. So if you'll see, इनकी
base is higher. Other companies' base is lower, and this one base is higher. Yeah.
Yes, because it's a large cap, 40,000 crore market cap. So it's a big company. But I'm just talking about the इनकी management ने भी guidance दिया कि they will also be improving their margins. So all the three companies, the common pattern is improvement in terms of margin and growth outlook or future. However, KEC management has not guided about the exact number of the sales growth that they will be doing. However, they have guided that the working capital requirement would be reducing, and we have discussed that it's a very big risk for all these companies to manage their working capital. So they are targeting the working capital reduction. So broadly, we have covered all the companies, their business model understanding, their future outlook, and peer-to-peer. Now, let me summarize. And Selva, if you feel that I'm missing any point, you can add, and let's conclude this series 1.
Okay.
So पूरा summarize करते हैं. Today, very insightful session. And so I will like jot down the points जो learnings है, and you can chip in अगर कुछ लगता है तो Selva. So first of all, we discussed that why this sector is important. So this sector is important because growth है यहाँ पे, GDP की growth से demand बढ़ रहा है. And what has changed, I would say, क्यों बढ़ रहा है? So कुछ नए sector आ चुके हैं, data center आ चुका है. I would say blockchain का भी mining start हो रहा है. Along with that, AC का requirement बढ़ रहा है. Earlier अगर आप देखोगे तो पहले हर घर में एक AC का आस था, and now I would say कि in every home, every room in Delhi NCR, or I would say all the metro cities, all the metro cities अब तो power demand बढ़ रहा है, सारा कुछ electrical हो रहा है. So ये तो clear है, हमें demand बढ़ रहा है. So catering to high demand, government क्या कर रही है? 9 लाख करोड़ का capex कर रही है by 2030-31, right? It's a very big thing that the government is doing. So that's clear. Now coming की इसका chain, value chain पे let's think जो हमने discuss करा. So तीन तरह generate होती है power, then transmit होती है, then distribute होती है. Generate companies कौन सी करती हैं? जो मतलब power plant own करती है. Then उस power बन गया power plant में, then we have to transmit from power plant to our city. So for that transmission is required. Transmission में क्या क्या होता है? So there are transformers, conductors, like then substations. So वो 3-4 तरह के parts होते हैं जो आपको पूरा chain को complete करना पड़ता है. So in transmission में discuss करा था फिर, and let's touch upon distribution as well before. So जब आपके घर के पास आ जाती है electricity, तो आप तक घर तक पहुंचाने के लिए distribution companies. So very few companies are there जो पूरा भी own करती हैं, but majorly हमने discuss करा कि transmission is more better because you would see वहां पे growth ज्यादा है, margins थोड़े ज्यादा हैं, बाकी generation में pricing power इतना नहीं मिलता, and capex heavy ज्यादा generation का है. आज अगर आपको पावर प्लांट लगाना है तो वो सबसे बड़ी इन्वेस्टमेंट हो जाती है, राइट? सो these are the three things, and we focus कि हम ट्रांसमिशन पे ज्यादा फोकस करेंगे. सो इन ट्रांसमिशन ऑल्सो आई वुड से हमने डिस्कस करा था कि पावर ग्रिड है जो इंडिया में 50% ओन करती है पूरा ट्रांसमिशन लाइंस को, बाकी 50% डाइवर्सिफाइड है. देन वी डिस्कस कि कैसे होता है इसमें. सो पावर ग्रिड गवर्नमेंट के सारे प्रोजेक्ट्स मैनेज करती है मोस्टली. देन वो फर्दर प्रोजेक्ट्स देती है जिसको हम कहते हैं ईपीसी. सो जो कंपनीज लाइक स्किपर, ट्रांसरेल, केईसी क्या करते हैं, व्हाट दे डू इज बेसिकली दे टेक द प्रोजेक्ट फ्रॉम मोस्टली पावर ग्रिड एंड दे हैव टू कंप्लीट इन अ स्पेसिफिक टाइम. दैट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर देम टू कंप्लीट द एंड टू एंड प्रोजेक्ट्स. मतलब उनको ट्रांसफार्मर भी लगाना है, कंडक्टर्स भी यूज करने हैं, देन सब स्टेशंस भी करना है. सो एवरीथिंग फ्रॉम ट्रांसमिशन का जो चेन है वो ईपीसी कंपनी पूरा करेंगी. Am I going right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So that's the thing we have discussed. And इसमें दो तरह की कंपनीज आती हैं जो ईपीसी प्रोजेक्ट्स करती हैं एंड जो कंपनीज पार्ट्स बनाती हैं. लेट्स से देयर आर कंपनीज जो खाली केबल्स बना रही है, कोई ट्रांसफार्मर बना रही है, बट टुडे वी फोकस ऑन द कंपनीज जो पूरा का पूरा एंड टू एंड सिस्टम ओन करती है, दैट इज ईपीसी. सो दिस वाज द चेन दैट वी डिस्कस्ड. नाउ वी डिस्कस अबाउट द थ्री कंपनीज टुडे, ट्रांसरेल, स्किपर एंड केईसी. सो ट्रांसरेल इज समथिंग जो 50-50% है, मतलब रेवेन्यू स्प्लिट इंडिया में भी काम करता है, बाहर भी काम करता है, एंड 90% 80 to 90
from T&D EPC.
Yeah, TND. You can just add if you feel so. Okay. So and then we have the this majorly it's having a 90% revenue from transmission and distribution. Then we saw that the highest margins they are having among the all the three players. Reason is backward integration. Backward integration क्या होता है कि जो पार्ट्स ये ईपीसी में बनाएंगे वो खुद से दे आर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इन देयर फैसिलिटीज, तो इसलिए इनके मार्जिन्स आर बिट हायर. एंड ऑल्सो ये अब्रॉड में काम करते हैं, मतलब अदर रीजन्स नॉट जस्ट डोमेस्टिक, सो देयर द मार्जिन्स हाई. बट रिस्क भी आता है, रीजन स्पेसिफिक रिस्क. बांग्लादेश में देयर वर्किंग, सो ओवर देयर इट्स अ रिस्क ऑफ अनसर्टेनिटी. प्लस इन एनी रीजन जब आप काम करते हो तो वहां का एक अलग रिस्क होता है दैट द कंपनी इज कैरिंग. देन वी सॉ कि जो ग्रोथ पार्ट है, स्किपर एंड ट्रांसरेल दोनों अच्छे से ग्रो कर रहे हैं, 30% से ग्रो कर रहे हैं. एंड फ्यूचर गाइडेंस भी दोनों कंपनीज का रफली 22 to 25% लेट्स टेक मैनेजमेंट इज गाइडिंग. सो ग्रोथ आउटलुक इज गुड, गवर्नमेंट खर्चा कर रही है. एंड स्किपर का भी सिमिलर इन टर्म्स ऑफ दे आर मेजरली फ्रॉम टीएनडीसी रेवेन्यू आता है, ट्रांजिशन 80%. And there also the difference between Transrail and Skipper is my understanding is ki region. So
they're mostly domestic focused.
Yeah, and वो diversified है. That's why थोड़ा सा margin कम है Skipper, right, from Transrail. But दोनों का order book अच्छा है. Skipper में we discuss कि domestic mutual fund नहीं है, वो एक red flag दिखा. That's something, it's something you up to you. I just highlighted. Now coming to KEC. KEC is a very big company. And that's why due to bigger base it's become difficult to grow. And KEC is a diversified in terms of I would say TND से 60% revenue उनका आता है, other civil and other division. So and we saw कि growth wise KEC का सबसे कम है in terms of growth because of base or I would say कि TND से कम revenue आता है. Then region wise they are diversified, fairly diversified.
Yes.
Yeah. And common thing you will observe in all the three companies con call, margin expansion पे guide कर रहे हैं, future outlook पे अच्छा है. So through this you will get to know कि sector में tailwinds है. That's how if the company, the owner of the company is seeing कि आगे क्या हो रहा है, तो that's he will be guiding. So ये हमने पूरा का पूरा we discussed upon the things. Now coming to the risk पूरे chain में, because without risk we can't conclude this. So first of all, like this, the pricing power, I would say still the entire power sector is something, it's a B2G, business to government. So government से जब आप काम करते हो, so आपको एक तो होता है tender bidding होता है, so lowest one gets the order. Although I would say still the quality and deliverable timeline matter in this. So receivables आपके ज्यादा रहते हैं, working capital का need रहता है. So these are the few risks जो हमने B2G companies में देखा है. And एक और है कि गवर्नमेंट कभी चेंज होता है, सो जो प्रोजेक्ट्स आज है वो नहीं रहेगा. दैट्स आल्सो द गवर्नमेंट स्पेसिफिक रिस्क. It's a hard fact in India, but it's something we have to consider because we have seen the example of the companies like IRCTC. Overnight the government came in that I need extra revenue from you. And then we saw in the case of Nazara Technologies, overnight government shut the business. So it's a government risk. That thing should be there in your mind that if you're dealing with a B2G company, all the growth is there. That's the key risk that I think so. And Selva, if you want to add anything, because in the
most part you covered it up, bro. Everything you covered.
Okay. So we have discussed, it's a part one. We'll complete the power sector and we'll cover other aspects also. And if you like to know anything specific to the audience, I'm asking about the valuation, or we can touch upon the next episode. And we'll be coming up with a lot of interesting series among this. And thank you so much, Selva, for taking your time and explaining to us entire chain.
It's my pleasure, bro. Thank you.